start by starting the recording. And then stopping the transcription. Okay, so before I go ahead, I want to find out if my voice is audible enough. So can you guys hear what I'm saying?
Yes, please.
Okay, that's good. So let me start by, okay, I was sharing my screen when I mistakenly took it off. So can you guys also see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's good. So, we couldn't hold our class yesterday because the university internet was down, at least at my office end. First of all, I was not even on campus. I wanted to hold the class off campus, but there was blackout. There was no power, or you say there was power outage. Then I went to campus. There was power, but there was no network. So this morning I have both at my current location. So let's move ahead because you can never know when one of those factors would be eliminated, in this part of the world. So in our last class, we ended by discussing problems with definitions. Problems with definitions. We saw different ways in which definitions could be problematic. Today we are looking at types of discourses. And what is a discourse? Sometimes when we write, we put individual sentences together for different purposes. A collection of sentences is called a passage or a discourse. So basically, a discourse, which we also call a passage, is a collection of sentences. Now we shall distinguish passages that are arguments from those that are not. So the basic distinction is between argumentative passages and non-argumentative passages. So that's the bottom line of what we're trying to do. Now, argument. A discourse is called an argument if it contains a claim or conclusion that is supported with reasons or information. And also, if you can see a conclusion, a statement that serves as a conclusion, and then it is accompanied by statements that are providing reasons for that conclusion, then that's an argument. So an argument contains at least two items or components: a conclusion, which normally looks like a claim or even a decision, and then expressions aimed at providing support or proof for the conclusion. So you have conclusion, and then you have reasons for the conclusion. Those are the two components of an argument. An example of an argument. Now, Ghanaian men, okay, there are three statements here. So the three statements, we will soon see the one that serves as a conclusion, and then the ones that serve as reasons for the conclusion. Now, statement one, Ghanaian men think women don't deserve to occupy high positions. Statement two, they question the competence and qualification of women who are sent to high office, but refrain from doing same to even incompetent men. Statement three, therefore, Ghanaian men do not respect women. So we have three statements. Notice that the above passage has three statements. Statements 1 and 2 are serving as information, evidence, or reasons to support statement 3. So for attempting to support statement 3, these statements are called premises. Statement 3, which is being supported, is called conclusion. So we can see that when you look at the three statements, you can immediately tell the conclusion and then the reasons being given for the conclusion. Okay. The first thing is, how do we identify arguments? Yeah, so there are basic techniques for identifying arguments, passages that are arguments. Now, the first thing about identifying arguments is that there are certain words or phrases that immediately tell you are looking at an argument. There are words or phrases that serve as giveaways. They just betray the fact that this is an argument. Some of them serve as indicating that you are seeing a premise. Some of them indicate that it is a premise. The sentence they are contained is a premise, and some of them serve to show you that the sentence they are contained in is a conclusion. Now, those words or phrases that tell you are looking at a premise, we call them premise indicators. Now, look at these premise indicators here. When you see a sentence beginning with the word for, for he does not know how, or for there were no arrangements to do, or for there were preparations, such sentences are premises. They are serving as reasons for something else. Or you see a sentence beginning with granted that, or in view of the fact that, inasmuch as, since it is a fact that, one cannot doubt that, or because the reason is that. Now, so the reason is that that's the most direct indicator of a premise. The reason is that. That clearly tells you it's a premise. As shown by the fact that it's also a premise indicator. They tell you are looking at a premise. What about conclusion indicators? Now, these are conclusion indicators. You have therefore, consequently, hence, a certain that. Now, so this immediately tell you are looking at a conclusion. Now, you can take any of these words and substitute them in the example of the argument we saw. So let's look at the example again. Example of an argument. For the premises, Ghanaian men think women don't deserve to occupy high positions. They question the competence. Now, you can take any of the premise indicators. You can say, granted that, in view of the fact that, Ghanaian men think women don't deserve to occupy high positions, and granted that they question the competence and qualification of women who are sent to high office. Therefore, Ghanaian men do not respect women. So, and then you look at the conclusion, there is already a conclusion indicator there. Therefore, you can substitute it with any other conclusion indicator. So you go to the conclusion indicators. You have other conclusion indicators. You have consequently, so you can, or hence. So you can replace therefore with hence. Hence, Ghanaian men do not respect women. Okay, but you will not always find indicators, whether premise indicators or conclusion indicators. Most arguments don't have indicators. Indicators are just, emotional embellishments. They are just added to, make the expression look more expressive. It's not that they are necessary. They are not necessary. You can write your arguments, you can make your arguments without indicators. And as a matter of fact, you have to learn to identify arguments without indicators. For instance, nobody would give you an examination on an argument and put indicators. Okay. Now, non-arguments. Not every passage or cluster of propositions is an argument. Some passages are non-arguments. Examples: narratives, instructional passages, rhetorical polemic. So we have three basic kinds of non-argumentative passages. So let's begin with narratives. A narrative is a passage that reports a sequence of events. Sequence of events. A passage that reports a sequence of events. According to the order the events occurred. So look at this example. Over the course of 2 weeks, some police officers have been observed stopping and checking cars in the in the area between Nsawam and Anyinam on the Accra-Kumasi Road. They extort money and abuse motorists who question their authority, brandishing AK-47 assault rifles and dressed in heavy police gear. These officers do not just check cars, they also assault some motorists and passengers. So this is a collection of factual statements, or you can say factual statements put together in a certain order. So stories, it's basically stories, storytelling. Okay, so that's basically a narrative. A narrative. Instructional passage. This is a passage that describes a process or sequence of things to do in a specific order. It offers a list of directives to follow to accomplish some desired effects. Now, so an instructional passage is basically a collection of imperatives. So you put imperatives together for an instructional purpose. The example below offers a list of directives on how to use a fire extinguisher. So example, pull the pin, aim the nozzle at the base of the fire. Aiming at the top of the flame with the extinguisher won't be effective. In a controlled manner, squeeze the trigger to release the agent. Sweep the nozzle from side to side until the fire is put out. Okay, so this is a set of imperatives about how to use a fire extinguisher. Then we have rhetorical polemic. This is a passage communicating usually strong feeling and persuasively vents an opinion. So rhetorical polemic is basically the expression of strong feeling, and sometimes trying to vent an opinion in a persuasive way. Example, I hate these lab tests. I hate these lab tests. That's an emotive expression. Every time I'm exposed to the disease plants, I fall ill. That's a claim. That's a claim. I'm sure they hate me or they are punishing me or something. That's an emotive expression. It's disgusting how I get sick so often. That's an emotive expression. So you have about 4 emotive expressions, which also include a claim. So the difference between rhetorical polemic and argument is that an argument is a conclusion supported with reasons, and a rhetorical polemic is a collection of emotive expressions, which could sometimes include a claim or claims. So that's the difference between the two. Okay. Now, a little exercise. Name 4 types of discourses studied in this chapter. Name 4 types of discourses. Anyone? 4 types of discourses, which we have just discussed. Okay, so because I don't want us to spend a lot of time, 4 types of discourses include argument, narrative, instructional passage, and then rhetorical polemic. What is an argument? An argument is a passage that contains a conclusion which is supported with reasons, which is supported with reasons. And the reasons could be in the form of information or evidence. Distinguish between argument and rhetorical polemic. So we have said that an argument is a passage that contains a conclusion supported with reasons, and a rhetorical polemic is a set of emotive expressions which could sometimes include a claim or claims. Okay. So that's that about 4 types of discourses. Now we are going to the second topic of today's meeting. This second topic is about types of disagreements. Types of disagreements. Now, critical thinking is about, observing certain rational principles when you are reasoning, arguing, and also taking decisions. Now, although critical thinking is not only about argument, of course, critical thinking includes arguments, debates, but it goes beyond that. It includes decision making, it includes investigations, it includes anything that requires the use of logic. Now, but we know that a prominent aspect of logic is what? Is argument, disagreement. And when you talk about argument, you can talk about disagreement. Now, to even introduce ourselves into the business of critical thinking, we need to start by looking at disagreements. And there are 2 basic types of disagreements. 2 basic types of disagreements. We have verbal disagreements and substantive disagreements. Verbal and substantive disagreements. And the disagreements are also called disputes. Now, the verbal dispute is a disagreement about the meaning of a word or words. Disagreement about the meaning of a word or words. Example, that man is a Fanti. And then someone says, no, he's not a Fanti, he's an Akan. That man is a Fanti. No, he's not a Fanti, he's an Akan. Now, the second person or the person who is disagreeing doesn't know that a Fanti is an Akan. So once he understands that a Fanti is an Akan, then the disagreement disappears. It evaporates. So this kind of disagreement exists because of inaccurate meaning or lack of meaning, lack of understanding of a meaning of something. All you need to do to end the disagreement is to explain the meaning of something, clarify the meaning of something, clarification of concepts, such things, anything that have to do with clarifying meaning. Now, because of that, logicians and critical thinkers don't regard verbal disagreements as real disagreements. They think that verbal disagreements are just, something like pseudo disagreements. They don't give them the status of real disagreements. And then the one that is called real disagreement is a substantive disagreement. But let us see the second example of verbal disagreement. She is a Christian because she receives Holy Communion. No, she is not a Christian because she does not speak in tongues. Now, this is another example of a verbal disagreement. And why is this disagreement existing? Because of the lack of clarification of what being a Christian means. So someone understands, the first person understands being a Christian as someone who receives Holy Communion. That confirms you're a Christian. And the second person thinks that being a Christian is not about receiving Holy Communion, but about speaking in tongues. So the two of them have two different meanings of what it entails to be a Christian. That is a verbal disagreement. Now, the ones that logicians call real dispute or real disagreement, substantive disagreement about facts or values. So the real or the substantive disagreement is about facts or about values. Example of a disagreement about facts. Accra is the capital of Ghana. No, Kumasi is the capital of Ghana. This is a factual disagreement. So it is called a substantive or a real disagreement. Now, we may not have this disagreement in Ghana because we know the capital of Ghana. But people can have this disagreement in China or Russia or even America. So you resolve factual disagreements by verifying or confirming the facts. Then, example of disagreement about values or disagreement over values. Accra should be the capital of Ghana. No, Accra should not be the capital of Ghana. So that's it. A disagreement involving values. Now, to resolve it, you first of all need to begin to investigate the values of those who are disagreeing, study the differences in their values and preferences, and then know why they are holding their values. So, resolving value disagreements is much more difficult compared to resolving factual disagreements. So let's look at a little exercise. Determine whether the following disagreement is verbal or real. Now, Sandra says, that man is quite old. He died at 50. And then Comfort says, you call that old? He died young. So is this a verbal or a real disagreement? So someone can attempt to answer. Yeah, so who wants to? Dorcas?
Real disagreements or factual.
Yeah, so you need to speak up.
Real disagreements.
Okay, so why do you think it is real?
Because they are both talking about the man's age, which is he died at 50, but one thinks he died young and the other thinks he died old.
Yeah, so the first question you need to ask yourself is it a disagreement about facts? Or is it a disagreement about values? Or is it a disagreement about the meaning of something?
The disagreement about a meaning of something.
Okay, the meaning of what?
Age, old age or young age.
Yeah, so the meaning of the word old. So the word old is or rather the meaning of the word old or what old entails is in contest. So they are contesting what old entails. So that makes it a verbal disagreement. You can see it is not a disagreement about facts. Comfort is not arguing, or Comfort doesn't have a problem with the fact that he died at 50, or Comfort doesn't disagree that he died at 50. Comfort is not saying he died at 40 or 30 or 20. And then it is not a disagreement involving values, because dying at 50, the question of whether 50 is old or young, it's not really a question of preferences. It's just a question of the perception of what old entails. So at the end of the day, we tell ourselves that it is a disagreement about meaning. The meaning of what it is to be old. So that makes it a verbal disagreement. And I think it brings us to the end of today's class. In our next class, we'll be looking at some expressions that cannot be interpreted literally. And right now, when I end this class, I'm going to upload the recording so that those who came late or didn't come at all will begin to watch. I'm sure a lot of people came late because when I was beginning, I saw we were just about 40 or 30 something. Now we are 54, so at least 10 people may not have started from the beginning. Now the last thing is, any questions? Does anyone have a question to ask before we proceed? And let me make a comment about your textbooks. The coordinator doesn't have a plan to bring the textbooks to City Campus. And I think the person who used to bring the textbooks to City Campus, who puts them at your academic office and then sells them from there, I'm not sure the person is available. So I think what you guys can do is to put your monies together, contribute, write down your names, and give the money to someone, and then the person should come to main campus, go to the Department of Philosophy, purchase the number of copies that have been contributed for, put them in an Uber or a boat vehicle or a taxi. Well, taxis are more expensive. And then bring them down to City Campus. Come to City Campus, and then you assemble to take your copies. So I think that is simple enough. Any other questions? Elvis?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, please, I noticed in your example of the conclusion, you were like, therefore, Ghanaian men do not respect, something like that. And there was a colon between the indicator and the conclusion. So please, I wanted to ask if it's like compulsory to put the colon there.
No. Well,
It can be a straight sentence without a colon.
yeah, I think it can be straight.
Okay.
Therefore, yeah, but I think a colon is preferable for
Okay.
standard grammar.
Okay, sir.
Because the appendage or the indicator is not a prime part of the sentence. It's just like an appendage. So you could write it straight, but a colon, I think, is preferable. I would.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, for me, I would put a colon after such an indicator, because once the sentence can do without it, then I think a colon is preferable. Osei, can you?
Hello, sir. Please, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Hello, sir.
Yes, good morning.
Sir, please, I want to ask. Yes, please. If a word is an open class word, please, can you hear me?
Yes.
If
Go
a
ahead.
word is an open class word, and an argument is being based on that word, would that argument then be classified as a verbal argument?
Of course, it is verbal. As long as the meaning is not settled, it's technically verbal.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So it doesn't need to be closed or open class. If it is closed, a closed class word or a word with a specific meaning, but someone doesn't understand it, it is verbal. If it is a vague word or an open class word, like Jose just pointed out, and then different people are attaching different meanings to it, that's verbal. Once there is no settled meaning, then there's a verbal disagreement.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So I'm going to have to stop the recording and then begin to upload. Since today is a Saturday, I wouldn't want to take up our time any further so that we can be about other activities. And so until our next class, I wish you a happy weekend and I encourage you to continue to be serious in whatever you're doing. All right, so the recording